Okay, hi everyone. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me? Oh, you know what? I have a little bit of a problem here. I can't see your comments on my I have this uh-oh. Your comments aren't showing up on my on my laptop here. Oh, okay, yep, okay. I can see your comments on my phone. I can't see it on my laptop. I have this jacked up issue with my laptop where I can't see my comments on Facebook. But okay, okay, good. Okay, well, welcome to my live demo. My name is David Meng, and first I want to say thank you to Brandon and Shiflett for inviting me to be part of this. And I suppose I should probably begin by introducing. Hi, Brandon. I suppose I should probably begin by introducing who I am. My name is David Meng, and I've been working as a sculptor and sometimes as a designer for about 17 years now. Um, and uh, and oh gosh, I spent the first 8 years of my career like working in New Zealand at Weta workshop, and and then when I came back from New Zealand, I spent a good chunk of that time working for Guillermo del Toro. Uh, I guess I'll just begin by showing you my workspace here. So okay, gonna take my oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. How do I? Not sure how I turn the thing around. Okay, so this is my workspace here. Um, I don't know how to turn this around. Oh, okay. I tell you, this is super stressful. Just the technical issues are just. Um, thank you, Randy Hand. Um, okay. So this is my workspace. It's 3 folding tables pushed together in the center of our living room here, and I wish I had a studio, but you know, this is just what I've got. So and it works fine. Okay, and I guess I can show you some of my work. So this piece here is the Monkey King, and it's the first time I sculpted a multi-figure piece. So I'll just turn it around so you guys can look at it. That's funny, Jared. Yeah, I have my laptop queued up so I could read the comments on a separate screen from when I'm filming this on, but I've had this issue where for some reason, on the screen, it doesn't it doesn't let me see the comments. So hopefully I can do this without missing too many people's comments. So the Monkey King is a famous Chinese story where all the main characters are monsters, and they go and they fight a bunch of monsters, and it's one of my favorite things. And thank you, Tom. Good to see you here. Let me just and over here is another character from that same story. It's the it's a sidekick. It's like a pig man. His name's Zubajie. Thank you, Jared. Normally he has like sort of like this giant 9-pronged rake, but I had to take the rake off because I cast the handle of his rake without any reinforcement inside, and the weight of the rake was starting to kind of make the staff bend. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Tom. I hope this isn't going to be too disappointing because I'm super nervous and little things are going wrong and throwing me off. Okay. So I was pretty happy with this piece. And over here I've got a little turtle creature. Let me just took a long thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jared. It took me a long time to do the paint job on this guy, but thanks, William. Thanks, Tom. And okay, let's see what else we have here. So this is a creature here that I put out last year. He's called Barabbas Lockjaw, and the idea with this guy was that if you have any dreams in your life, he comes and just chops it down right before you think it's going to happen, which has happened a little bit in my career. So and I was happy with this piece. I like the basic design and I like the basic idea, but I thought I could do a better job on the face. So I did a larger version here where I just kind of improved some things like the symmetry and stuff like that, and just kind of made it more of just try to work on the character and put more into the face. So hi, Brian. So he's got kind of like these weird sort of like twisted horns, and one thing I wanted to try with this guy is I wanted to give him sort of like markings like a gazelle or something. So and also I wanted to work in these kind of like sort of like spirally designs, just because I thought that would look neat. Oh, thank you, Marcus. Thanks, Brandon. Okay, let's see. And back here is a fan art piece that I did. I've always been a really big fan of the animated Aeon Flux. So way before the live action movie, I always just really liked the cartoon and the style of it, and the way it was sort of influenced by Egon Schiele. And what do you? So Sean's asking, what do you sculpt and just paint? Yeah, well, this piece was sculpty, but the other pieces here were cast in resin. Yes, Aeon Flux. So this was just sort of based on the original kind of character design by Peter Chong. And I did this, I think, about 16 years ago. So that's just a personal, kind of fan art piece, just a one-off. And here's this pig character that I did. Hi, Mohammed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, and Andre. Um, and okay, so moving on. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay. Here is a, I guess it's kind of like a genie that I sculpted. If you look at his belly button, that's like a eye. And he's kind of, oh, thanks, John. Hey, John. And, what's this? Excuse me. I've had a cold the last few days. So if you look in the back, he's kind of got this like long braided hair that Chinese people had back in the 1800s. His features were kind of like based on like I'm Chinese myself, and this was based on sort of like cartoons about the Chinese done by the West back in the 1800s. So, but I just wanted to kind of like take that basic idea and so William B. Hand is asking, is this your normal setup or did you pull all this stuff out just for us? I pulled it out just for you guys because I'm not much of a talker, so I was hoping I could just kind of spend most of the time just showing you guys stuff. So I hope this works. So yeah, so there's that piece, and let's see what else I can show you here. This is a mammoth that I sculpted back in 2003, I believe, around the same time I did that Eon Flux piece. And it's done all in Sculpey. You can see here the tail's broken off, and it's been taped here, which miraculously this tape still is sticky, which even though it's 16 years old. Thank you. Thank you, Jared, and thank you, William. Thank you, Adrian. Oh, thank you, Jeannot? Sorry, not sure how to say your name. Yeah, I need to take care of this cold. It's my kid got sick just the weekend before this, and I think I caught it from him. Okay, so this sat in my uncle's garage for about 8 years while I was in New Zealand. Oh, thank you, Tom. Okay, so over here I got some more figures. This is a wall hanging I did. I was considering putting this out. Thank you, Sean. I was thinking about putting this out as a kit or something, because the idea was it's just a really simple open mold where I just pour the resin into it, and it's just one piece and it's very easy to produce. So I don't know, I was thinking about making this available to people, but maybe you guys can let me know if there's an interest in that. And over here is another creature. This guy, it's kind of like a spider, wolf, bat, human kind of creature. Jason Allen asks, you worked on District 9, correct? Yes, I did. I designed the prawns in that movie. Yeah. Okay, And okay, so I'll just keep on moving along. Here's a bunch of satyrs. Here's a little satyr bust. And thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jason. And here's a larger bust. Believe it or not, this was sculpted about 5 years ago, and it's just been sitting on my desk where I just work on it every now and then. Most of my a lot of the sculptures on my table have, it doesn't take me a long time to kind of rough them out and get them going, but for whatever reason, maybe just procrastination, they just end up they just kind of end up sitting on my desk for a long time. And this guy has probably been here the longest. He's about 5 years old. One trick I kind of have for kind of rejuvenating old Siobhan is if you take a little bit of Vaseline and kind of like, just a little bit, and just kind of like rub it into the surface, and then kind of like, if you take a tool like, excuse me, if you take a tool like this, which is a bunch of wires that have their that have been flattened, you can kind of like go in there and kind of rough up the surface, and then rub the Vaseline in some more, and eventually you'll kind of like get the surface back. So that's how I've been able to kind of keep these things going over several years. And here is an elephant monster that I sculpted and designed. It's so with an elephant, like a lot, what I think makes this piece is because there have been a lot of elephant monsters done where it's just kind of like an elephant head on top of kind of like a big kind of chunky humanoid body. But I think what makes this piece a little different is that I made sort of like a human skull mouth in the center of its chest, and I think that's what makes it different. Oh, thank you, Adrian, and thank you, Hemi. Yeah, and by the way, this is a female monster, by the way. I started to become sort of like aware that I was making too many kind of like male creatures, so I needed some female ones too. So this is actually a lady. Thanks, William. And okay, and here's some of the pieces I'm working on at the moment. Okay, I'm gonna put this back on a stand for a minute. Thank you, James. The little face to the left, Nick. Let me see. Little face to. Are you talking about this guy? Any piece I'm particularly proud of? There's pieces I'm more proud of than others. I mean, I kind of, there's bits and pieces I like about most of them, but a lot of stuff I don't. Well, I'm sorry, Starlene. I'm not sure why you're not getting this. So this is like a little Sculpey guy that I did a couple years ago. I don't think it's a great sculpture, but I do think it's kind of a cool character. And what I was actually going to be doing tonight for my demo. Oh, Oh, left of the elephant. Okay. Well, let me just finish. What I'm actually going to be doing tonight is like sculpting a larger version of this. But the little face to the left. Do you mean this guy? This is a bust that I did, thinking about possibly producing this as a kit. Although I think casting it might be a bit of work. But thank you, Sherry. So I tried to do something interesting with the base. So behind him is this little sorry, let me just turn off this light. This like little baby bird. So there's that piece. Okay, let me just see what Stacy Davidson's saying. Oh, thank you, Stacy. I'm glad those tools worked out for you. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you guys think this is like this would make a good kit, then I'll definitely think of, like try to produce it, because I need to find a way of making all this kind of more profitable. And here's another little bust that I'm doing. It's supposed to be Caliban from The Tempest. So because he's kind of described in the play as being like people can't tell if he's a man or a fish, so I just tried to kind of incorporate some fish-like aspects into it, like fins on his head and scales and plates and stuff. So in the back here it's really rough, but that's going to be like an octopus incorporated into the base. Okay, and here is a little guy that I sculpted some time ago. It's based on the drawing I did. It's called the tempura troll. And the inspiration behind it was one time I was like really tired and I looked across the room and there was like this plastic bag all crumpled up and it just kind of looked like a face. So I drew it really quick and then I did a better drawing from that scribble. Marcus asks, I noticed you do 2D concepts as well. Do you do it for all your sculpts or design as you sculpt? Well, I generally do a little scribble, but I don't necessarily stick to it. In this case, I stayed very close to the original drawing I did. But normally I kind of will just use the drawing as a starting point and I'll use the drawing as a starting point and I'll do I'll just work into it more as I sculpt it. So let's see, what else have I got here? Here is another bust about the same size as that cat piece. It's an orangutan. Yes, thank you for the shares. Thank you everyone who's sharing this. Yep, this is just an orangutan because I really like orangutans. I love the kind of like texture that they have in their foreheads. I think that's really kind of interesting. And yeah, well, thank you, Jeannot. Okay. And let me take the thing off the stand again. I wish I could hear you guys because it is really awkward to. I feel like I know I'm just kind of rambling here, so I apologize for that. Okay. Here's some more pieces here. This is a so one of the projects I'm doing, personal projects I'm doing, is the Seven Deadly Sins, which a lot of people are doing, but a lot of people have done that. But this is going to be my version of it, and so this guy is actually Sloth, and over here I have a drawing. This was the original design for that, and yes, that would be great if I had a minion. Unfortunately, I don't have one tonight. My wife is watching my son upstairs, so I don't have any help here. Thank you, Melissa. Nice to see you here. And thank you, BK. So, with this guy, originally he was designed to be sitting up like this, but I, because he's supposed to be the sort of personification of Sloth, I thought it'd be better if he was lying down. And his eyes were kind of like based on shark eggs. I just like the idea. I just like the idea that he's so lazy that his eyeballs can't even stay inside his skull and they just kind of like fall out. So there's that. The one in the middle looks like he has a Big Johnson. I guess you're talking about this. His flap in the front. That's his flap in the front. But if you look, he does have. I did sculpt his genitals. Okay, and here I got a couple more pieces. So in that series of Seven Deadly Sins, I've also got this guy here. Hold on, just so this is the Sin of Wrath, and so he's in the same series as that Sloth piece. And so like when I was doing research about the Seven Deadly Sins, one of the things I read was that in the Middle Ages, it was often visually represented as either a leopard or a wolf with a arrow piercing its heart. So I've got the arrow piercing his heart here, and I try to work in some wolf-like elements into it too. So he's got a tail kind of like a wolf. He's made of flames because he's Wrath, and his legs have kind of like a dog-like bend to them. And let me do a close-up of the face so you can kind of see it better. Yeah, and so, like with these pieces, especially because of the subject matter, I'm trying to kind of incorporate more sort of Middle Ages kind of style to the textures and the detailing. So this kind of looks kind of almost like a carving that you'd find in sort of like a Gothic church. Like my idea with these figures was that they're a little bit more stylized and less kind of like tied to natural reality. Well, thank you, Andrea. Janot says, scary monster looks like a mother-in-law. Okay. So I've got Sloth, I've got Wrath, and right now I'm not finished with it, but here's Gluttony. And so, of course, Gluttony is a big fat guy, and do a close-up of the head here. So the idea with this one is, like, if you look at his fingers, they're like sausages. And he's holding a sausage in his hand. So I still have a lot of, like, seaming and patching on this figure to do. But I just wanted to kind of, like, bring him... I think I got him just to a stage where I'm okay with showing you guys. So this is... he's holding a sausage in his fist, and it's got, like, a screaming mouth. Thank you, Lonnie. So Nick DeSantis asks, do you use an airbrush to paint them? I do. Linger on that mouth for us, says William Han. Okay. Oh, this mouth. And and so the sausage theme kind of works its way all throughout the figure. So he's kind of got like he's kind of like a sumo wrestler with a top knot, but it's like the twisty end of a sausage. And if I turn him around, here, he's got his ass is like a mouth. Oh, the big guy's mouth. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. And okay. So just a lot of fun sculpting, like fleshy folds and just rolls of flesh. Metaphor for bad breath? Possibly. And okay, and I guess the last piece I got here to show is here's a satyr that I'm working, another satyr I'm working on, and so his hands are positioned this way. He's going to be holding like pipes in his hands. Starlene asks, do you work in parts? I find it hard to work with all the limbs connected. Well, what I do is I work with it all in one piece, and then later on I cut everything apart, and then I go in and I detail each part separately. Let me let me show you. So over here I've got like for instance, here's a casting of Gluttony's arm, and what happens is I'll cut the arm off of the figure, and then I'll put this up on like a kind of attach it to a block of wood, and I'll put this up on a block of wood, and then I'll finish detailing it, and then I'll mold and cast that, and I'll take the casting and I'll fit it up against the sculpture of the body, which is still in clay, and then I make sure the fit's nice, and then I kind of like put it on and test the fit, take it off, and then fix it up, and then I mold the torso. So hopefully, in theory, everything should fit together, although it doesn't always work out so great. BK asks, will I be casting in my work computer? No, I haven't really thought about that. And Adrian asks, may I see the gorilla on the table behind you, please? I think you're talking about this piece here. This is not my sculpture, but it's based on a character I designed for Pacific Rim. So that's Leatherback. Again, this is not my sculpture, but it's based on a character that I designed and did a maquette of. My friend Simon got it for me when he was in Japan. And okay, so maybe I'll just finish showing you guys this one. So this is a satyr, and he's going to be playing pipes. And what I wanted to do with this guy is, most of my creatures are kind of like ugly and grotesque. I wanted to try to do one that wasn't so ugly, maybe slightly good looking. So the tough thing is casting when I cast these things in yes, Kyle, Simon Lee. When I cast these in resin, one of the problems is like when you have kind of like long legs like this, the weight of the resin will kind of like make them bend over time. So I have to cast them with some kind of armature inside so that doesn't happen. And I've yet to figure out how to really do that. But there's that guy. And okay, well that's pretty much my the work I have to show you. And just show you some more designs I did. So here's the drawing of this little guy. So this little guy here, this was his design that I did originally. So James asks, do I start off with an armature if I'm going to cut the limbs off and mold separate? Yes, I do. What I do is I cut through to the armature. I cut a slice of clay, like a wedge, out of the clay sculpture, so I can use a jeweler's saw to kind of get at the wire, and I saw that off of the rest of the armature. So here is the drawing for that troll guy. Here's the drawing for the elephant monster. I draw them in pencil and I scan them into Photoshop and I paint them in Photoshop. And if you remember this guy over here, he started out as kind of like more of a centaur kind of guy. So he had sort of like a wolf body instead of like a spider body. So that's what I mean. Like I started out with a drawing, but then when I go to sculpt it, I change things around a lot. And here's the design for Gluttony. So this is one of the things that happens when I sculpt it. Is like I realize that this perspective here is completely impossible. It's hard to look at this angle of the body and then see that angle of the body this way. So so things change around when I sculpt it. But you can see he's got sort of like the sausages for fingers here. I kind of got rid of that Brahma bull hump. I didn't think that was working too well. And okay, well let me take this off of the Lazy Susan here, and I'll put up the sculpture that I am planning to work on tonight. So so this is the sculpt I'm gonna try to be doing tonight. Let me just plug in my iPhone here. So this was the original maquette that I did. It's not a very good it's not a very good sculpture, but I like the character and the design of it. So I'm gonna try to sculpt this as a larger version, and what I eventually hope to do is to like cast this in silicone and punch hairs into it and stuff, and just make it as realistic as possible. So when it's finished, I'm going to be it has sculpted eyes for now, but I'm gonna eventually replace that with like nice glass or acrylic eyes that I'm gonna buy. But I don't have them tonight, so I'm just gonna do them in clay. So I started sculpting this guy, I think after midnight on Monday, and I worked through most part of yesterday, and did a little bit of work on it today, because I knew I would not get very far with it tonight if I was just starting with a pipe. So the armature is it's a piece of plumbing pipe that's been screwed into a flange, and the flange is screwed onto this piece of wood. And I got a loop of armature. I took a length of armature wire and I looped it in half, and I shoved it in the pipe, and I stuck it to the pipe with plumber's putty. So Starlene asks, is that monster clay? It is monster clay. And Janot asks, are the eyes perfectly spherical? No, they're just rough stand-ins right now. I mean, it's just clay, so it's all kinds of it's completely imperfect. So yeah, let's see. Let me just get my Mac back up, see if I can see your comments yet on here. Yeah. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please let me know, because I'm. Okay, so Joseph asks, do you mix monster clay medium and hard together? No, I've actually don't often use monster clay. I don't often use monster clay, but with Siobhan, I do mix hard and medium together. I get I get a slow cooker like this. It's like one of these things that you can just get at Target or Walmart. And I just I chop the clay up into little cubes. I chop it up into little cubes, and then I put it into the slow cooker, and I set it on low for a couple hours, and eventually that liquefies, and then I can mix the oh yes, the box in the back is warming the monster clay. What I've got here, my heating arrangement is it's a banker's box with a hole cut into the lid, and I've got a I've got a heat lamp positioned over the hole on the lid, so that's warming up the clay inside. As you can see, the inside of the heating box is lined with aluminum foil. So I find this a very nice way to get my clay warm and to keep it warm. Hi Arnold. I love monster clay. It's working out so great for me. I was able to get this. I was able to get this up and running in just like less than a day, and I don't think I could have done it with a different kind of clay. I would have been able to do that with a wet clay, but I don't like to use that inside my house. So it's really nice to have this oil-based clay that can be so quickly worked when it's warm. So the original for this guy, it's not a great sculpture. So what I wanted to do was to kind of like take the basic design and just really make it a lot more, improve the sculpture by 100%, and just just kind of like really give a lot more character to each feature and kind of make it a little bit more anatomically correct. Not that it is, because it's still extremely exaggerated, but like I've got this, I wanted to have this like super long face. Benjamin asks, what wattage is the bulb? I think it's a 60-watt bulb in there, which is I think that's just about powerful enough to kind of keep the clay, get the clay nice and soft. So at this size, I'm trying to kind of like fix the anatomy and get more character and everything. And now that everything's larger, like the nose is like the size of this whole head, so now I can kind of like really kind of take my time and concentrate on each part. So Kurt asks, do you block in with big blobs or blend a lot of smaller blobs? I have a little trouble with monster clay being really soft and then it gets hard fast. Yeah, I kind of take like big pinches of it and I just like smush it together, and I try to blend it in while it's still warm. Yeah, I don't like to, like, at first when I'm blocking out the main forms, I just use big blobs and try to get the big forms going as soon as I can, and then later on I go in and I start to later on I go in and I start to do kind of more nuanced stuff. So little blobs are the way I do wrinkles is I like I'll carve them in. I'll make the line like nice and jagged like that, and then I'll go in and like I'll take a little blob of clay like this, and I'll add the form in there. James Dooley asks, do you use much reference or just do your own thing? I do use reference. I try to use reference as much as possible, but when I'm sculpting, I kind of don't usually have it out because I'm trying to just kind of like, it just kind of confuses me when it's all kind of like, when there's too much of it. But I spend all my time, one of my hobbies is just to kind of like flip through pictures I've grabbed off the internet. And it's usually pictures of textures and people's faces and animals and stuff, and I just look at that stuff over and over again. And I just sort of like try to build muscle memory for details and shapes that way. Janelle asks, do you start with a clear idea of what you want to achieve, but these goals may shift while sculpting? Yes, exactly. Sometimes not such a clear idea. Usually, like the drawings I showed you guys are a lot more finished than what I actually usually use as my designs. Usually my drawings are just like really crappy little scribbles, and I just kind of work everything out in the sculpture. So like I said, I carve in the lines first, and once they're kind of in there, I smooth them over with my finger, and then I kind of start adding these little blobs, and hopefully start kind of building up, sort of impressionistically build up sort of like a nice realistic feeling. Oh yeah, so uh, Janelle says the sketches you've shown were pretty close to what you ended up with. Yeah, like some of them were. I made an effort to really stick close to the drawing, but much more often the drawing is just like a really rough and quick, crappy scribble. So I've only just kind of like blocked in the ears. Haven't really worked on the detail yet. Yeah, this clay is like molten right now, so I'll just take it out of the box. So Starlene asks, is monster clay a lot like sculpting wax but harder sometimes? I've actually never used wax. I think it's easier. It's actually way more like, it's clay, so you can work with it with your fingers. It gets pretty firm when it's cold, but I find it's working pretty well for me. Sometimes you end up with like these areas where like it's the line is carved a little too harsh. So what I do is I take some really soft clay and I smear it in there, and that kind of softens that line. I do lean the sculpture forwards and backwards and just any which way, to anything I can think of to kind of like look at it in a different light. Oh, okay. So Arnold Goldman says crockpot works really well too on low. Okay, so that could work too for monster clay. So here I've cut these grooves a little. What I tried to do was I tried to just get the character in there kind of over a little too much, and then I'm just going back in and like softening everything. So filling in these cracks to kind of just make it less harsh is what I'm doing right now. Fist Flory 99 Flava says, "Have you ever tried Super Sculpey Medium?" Yes. Here's another piece I did. I did this in Super Sculpey Medium. This is what I use for everything I have to do in Sculpey because it's opaque, and that lets me see all the detail. Because sometimes with the pink Super Sculpey, it's too translucent, so you miss a lot of the sort of like little unevenness and problems in the surface. Kurt Strubeck says that little guy back there is mean mugging you hard. Which little guy? This guy? your comments are covering up his face, so I didn't know what you were talking about for a second. But yeah, he's looking over. Yeah, I like Sculpey Medium because it's got a nice firmness to it without being too hard. Because the firm stuff is a little too firm. But this is a little leprechaun that I sculpted a while back, and Maybe you guys can let me know if this sort of thing is worth putting out as a kid, because I just was afraid it was a little too boring of a subject. But anyway, hi Bruce Mitchell. Thank you all for watching me tonight. I'm very sorry that I'm not used to doing this, and I'm pausing really awkwardly, and I have a cold, and I'm coughing and hacking. So thank you for bearing with me. Hi, Bruce. Excuse me whilst I take a sip of tea with honey in it. Yeah. Thanks, William. Thank you, Jared. Yeah. Let's see. I was in perfect health for the last couple of weeks, and then just this last weekend, my kid got a cold, and then I caught it. So it's just perfect timing. Oh, thank you, Melissa. Can you move your computer so you don't have to crane your neck? Right now I'm reading the comments on the same device that's recording everything. So because I'm not able to get it on my computer for some reason, so I'm gonna have to keep craning my neck. Thank you, Nick. Fist Floor 99 Flavor says, if I don't put in the oven, can I just use heat gun to finish the sculpture? I'm not sure about that. I guess, yeah, I guess you could use like a hairdryer or something to kind of warm up the clay if it's too hard to use. But I really don't find that it's really that hard. It's still very sculptable. And Starlene asks, how long does that bucket of clay stay soft? It's already starting to kind of like turn from liquid to more like just a soft buttery consistency. So yeah, it doesn't take too long to get, but it's actually a really nice consistency right now. Kurt asks, will you use silicone mold and silicone cast? I think what I'm going to do is make a mold out of some kind of rigid urethane, and then cast in silicone from that. But I've never used platinum silicone before, so so I'm not sure how that's going to go. I know that Monster Clay is sulfur free, but my worry is more just because I'm used to working with tin silicones, so I'm just afraid they'll do something that will cause inhibition. Okay, so right now what I want to do is kind of build up the neck muscles, the sternomastoid muscles, and I just would like them to look really stringy and ropey because he's an old guy and he's kind of like a weak character. So yeah, actually, so I don't often use monster clay. I yeah. So Arnold says works well with platinum. Um, I wasn't really planning to mold him in silicone, but yeah, I think that yeah, I think it's good clay to use for silicone. Um, so I'm gonna try to just make these kind of like neck muscles really really pronounced. So yeah, as I was saying, I don't often use monster clay, but I just recently I saw some other work that was done in it. It was so nice, and I thought I would like to try it try it again myself. And it's when it's warm, it's really soft, and it's very easy to kind of block out something really quick. And it's really fun to use because it's really it's got a really nice smooth consistency. Um, so so I'm really not too much of an expert with it, but I definitely like using it. So here, what I'm doing is I'm trying to make the kind of skin on the neck kind of ropey and kind of attenuated, like kind of like when you go like this with your teeth or with your mouth. The kind of like strands of kind of like skin that like when you go like that stuff. Um, so I'm just kind of like building that up right now. Thank you, William. Janelle asks, in the face layout, what shapes do you consider to be the most essential to convey the overall personality of the character? That's a really good question. Definitely everything around the eyes and the stuff around the mouth, particularly the corners of the mouth. And one of my favorite kind of things to sculpt on something is this kind of like little hollow right here in the corner of the eye. I mean, of course, things like the nose also gives your sculpture a lot of personality and character too. But I think definitely the most important in conveying character is the kind of like folds and fleshy kind of pads around the eye, like this guy. One of the things I really want to get with this guy is like the kind of like really kind of like this. There's kind of like these lines of kind of like lines of character that kind of like go like this. What I want is for like the folds to kind of like be sliding down these lines and kind of like puddling up at the bottom, so you really get a sense of like gravity in the folds and wrinkles. And up here, I kind of want that brow to really look like it's like flesh that's been kind of like bunched up. In fact, I have a great piece of reference photo right here. This is a really nice wrinkle reference. BK asks, how fine or small a detail would you advise to sculpt on monster clay? For example, wrinkles before it becomes pointless, or would you recommend having prominent details rather than light and fine? Oh, I think you can get really, really fine. But for now, at this stage, I'm just not even worried about that kind of stuff. It's just the main kind of lines of character. Okay, so as I was saying before, what I really want with this guy is to kind of have like sorry, I'm sorry I'm missing some of your comments. I want everything to kind of like look like it's kind of like sliding off towards both sides of the nose. So he's got his skull under there, but the skin and flesh is kind of like sagging and kind of like piling up towards the bottom here. And Janot says, you don't seem to be into the Hollywood standard of actor's beauty for your character. Nope, definitely not. And I'm gonna make the cheeks more hollow to kind of emphasize the sort of the decrepitness of this guy. What I want to end up with is a face that is like textured and what inspired this? Kurt asks, what inspired this piece? I don't really know. I was just trying to sculpt the face in Sculpey, and I kind of ended up with this guy. It was just kind of like this old kind of Victorian English gentleman kind of guy. He's got kind of like a robe that he's wearing, and he's got like a big bushy mustache, and I just kind of like the face that I ended up with. So, but it's not a great sculpture. So I want to kind of take the character that I like from that and try to do a really nice job this time. So I want this guy to be like really realistically textured and have all this detail and just be very believable. But I also want him to be very exaggerated. I want him to look like someone even though he's a believable face, you wouldn't necessarily find, you really wouldn't find someone who looks like this in real life. Just kind of like amping everything up, so it's very, very heightened reality. Okay. So William Han is saying good night. So thank you, William, for watching, and have a good night. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Okay, I think I'm feeling slightly more comfortable with this format right now that I've been doing it for a little while. So hopefully I'll be able to do the rest of this without stuttering and stammering so much. Rizaldi says, hello from Sydney, Australia. Hi, Rizaldi. Janot asks, what are the books you read to get inspired? Oh gosh. My mind is drawing a blank right now. I read like weird, crazy stuff. Like I have all these books about like you know, like cryptozoology and like weird things people say that they've seen, and I get a lot of ideas from books like that. I wish I'd remembered to have one of those books down here with me tonight, because I actually did think of bring that subject up. I get a lot of ideas from like just kind of like obscure stuff. Like there was a ghost story I read about, like there's a ghost story I read about like a couple who's driving around in countryside in Ireland during one night, and their car stops because in the middle of the road there's like a huge horse standing in the moonlight with a man's face. And it had like hair all over its face and these big bulging eyes, and it gave the couple nightmares for like weeks afterwards. So like, you know, I don't believe any of that stuff, but oh, Jared says we love crypto stuff too. Well, that's good, because yeah, I'm sure I sound really really crazy, but I just love reading like just weird, insane stuff like that, just because it just kind of puts my mind in the right place. And okay, so right now I'm kind of like adding these little like nodules and blobs, kind of like right here, just to kind of give the skin above the eyes more sagginess and weight to them. Audrey Schutt said, sounds like a knuckle of E. Oh, BK Yap says, kind of looks like Michael Caine and Peter Mayhew. Those are exactly the faces I was thinking of when I did this guy. I saw like the photos of Peter Mayhew recently, and like the kind of eye bags and stuff were exactly kind of like the character that I've been going for. And the eyebrows and stuff are very much kind of inspired by Michael Caine or someone like that. Oh, Kurt says, I like those pictures of the so-called time travelers. Yeah, I think, wasn't there like a picture of like someone in a Charlie Chaplin movie with like what looked like a cell phone or something like that? Yeah, I mean, it's all ridiculous stuff, and I don't really believe any of it, but it is fun to kind of think, oh, well, what if that was true, and would it be cool to kind of like see something weird like that? One of these days, I've got to sculpt like a Bigfoot. But the stuff I read, kind of like Bigfoot, is like the more normal among all the kind of things I read about. So here, so I have this this head from the Andrew Carse anatomy figure, and so what I'm trying to get here is like that hollow between the muscles that kind of pull the corner of your mouth up. That corner there is what I'm trying to do, and so there's like a strand here that's kind of like separate from the rest of it, and then you got the hollow here. Yeah, I'm really BK. I'm really pleased that you brought up Michael Caine and Peter Mayhew, because sometimes I worry that like when I'm trying to do something, it doesn't actually come through. So, oh, Benjamin says, how about a Mothman sculpt? And Sean says, I'm all about Bigfoot. Would love to see your take. Yes, I would love to do to sculpt a Bigfoot. Mothman. That's an interesting one, because it's. Like it's a great story, and it's fun to hear about it and think about it, but the basic description, if you saw it in a movie, like if you saw it in real life, it'd be really weird and you know, shocking and everything. But if you see it in the movie and they did exactly what was described in those accounts, it wouldn't be all that interesting. So it would be, or at least in my mind, so it'd be interesting to try to like take that basic idea of kind of like, just kind of like this kind of like headless kind of torso thing with eyes in its chest, and make that cool somehow. So Jano says, do you pay attention to how the shapes flow into another, or does it just happen along the way? Keeping things coherent and harmonious is tough. Yes, it is. I guess it's just kind of like just trying to do it a lot, and you kind of get used to it. And one thing that helps with that is, and I see that Tom Keebler is watching. Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm a huge fan of yours. And Jared says, ever heard of Jeff the Talking Mongoose? Yes, I have heard of Jeff the Mongoose, and I want to sculpt or draw Jeff the Talking Mongoose. But I think if I did whatever I did with Jeff the Mongoose, he'd have to be wearing like a fez and have a pipe. Is Jeff a knight of tons of weed? Possibly. So for those of you who don't know what Jeff the Talking Mongoose was, it was a story where this English guy claimed that he heard this like voice coming from like inside his walls, and it would tell him that it was like a mongoose that could talk. And what was it? Yeah, it said it was a mongoose, and it could talk, and it gosh. And it became sort of like this sensation at the time, and a whole bunch of paranormal researchers went to this. Went to the Isle of Man. Oh, so James says it inspired the film Poltergeist. I didn't know that. But yeah, it was just one of the weirdest things I've ever heard of. So it would be fun to do a version of Jeff. Talk to him through a wall. Yes, that's right. I think the man, the guy who owned the house never actually saw Jeff, but his daughter did, and apparently all the way up until she was an old woman, she kept insisting that the story was true. Oh, hi, Tom. Oh, big fan of yours. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. I've been a little nervous here tonight, so it's I'm glad you caught me kind of like towards the end where I'm not quite so nervous. So Kurt asks, who named him Jeff? I think the man named him Jeff, but he named him. He was a poor speller, so he spelled the name G-E-F when it really should have been G-E-O-F-F or something like that. Someone mentioned a monster called the Knuckleavy, which is like a Scottish a monster from Scottish folklore. A monster from Scottish folklore that's like a skinned. It has no skin, and it's like a sort of like a horse and rider kind of melded together, and it's got flippers instead of legs, and like boar's teeth, and one giant fiery eye in the middle of the human head. So that would be an interesting thing to try to design. Okay, so sorry, Janelle was asking how do I keep the forms flowing together. Well, I was going to show you, and I got I just kind of like lost the plot here. But I've got this tool here, which is like which is a bunch of like music wire with the ends flattened. So what I did was I heated up the ends of this with a mini torch, and then when it was hot, I kind of like took it on like an anvil, and I like pounded them flat. And what this tool is good for is to kind of blend things in. And that it's kind of like a rake tool, like this, except it's because these wires are flexible. You can kind of like rake over stuff and blend it together without kind of like carving big chunks out of your sculpture. So this is a great tool for kind of getting things to flow together. So if you look at, I don't know how well you can see it, like so this blob here, if I use this tool to kind of like go over that, I can kind of like tie it into the larger forms, and it kind of like just kind of melds in there. And then I take a stipple sponge like this, and these you can get from an upholstery store, and I recommend doing that instead of a makeup store because it's a lot cheaper. Oh, Stacy says she made a tool just like this from the video I did for the Gnomon school. Yeah, it's a fantastic tool. It was the person who I learned about this tool from was my friend Jamie, Jamie Bezwark from Weta Workshop, and yeah, so he came up with this tool, as far as I know, and it works really great. Because it kind of rakes things together without kind of destroying the form altogether. So you can have like an area where there's like a bunch of blobs like this, and if you kind of like go over it, and it's good to kind of like work in kind of like small oh, hi Sandra Lira. Yes. Stacy says, yeah, I remember I recognized Jamie's name from the Lord of the Rings making of. Yep, Jamie's the guy who did the final pass on the design of Gollum. So he's a phenomenal sculptor that is really a big inspiration to me, and he's also one of my best friends. So if you kind of like, you can do kind of like small, kind of like half moon sort of strokes over it, and that really kind of like ties all those blobs in really well. And then you go over that with a stipple sponge. So you guys can let me know if you want to see anything closer, and I can move the phone or the camera in closer so you can see it. So, what I should do now. Let me kind of blend these blobs in a little bit better so I can kind of get a better sense of what I'm looking at here. Oh, so Kurt says, any advice on sculpting good noses? That, well, yes, pay a lot of attention to the way the nose joins the rest of the face, like especially down here, because it's easy to kind of like, it's easy to overlook that, and it's easy to overlook sort of like the negative shape of the nostrils is easy to not think about. And I try to kind of like really kind of overemphasize the planes of the cartilage of the nose, and I would like this guy to have like a nice bony nose. Yeah, that's an interesting. So Jano says, um, another thing that bothers me: how big should the tear duct be? I think a lot of artists tend to either over exaggerate or drop them at once. Yeah, I'm probably somebody who tends to over exaggerate them myself, because I've noticed in a lot of movie creatures from the 80s and 90s, anytime they had like a mechanical eye that wasn't like an actor's eye, a lot of times they didn't sculpt the tear duct, and I always wondered why that is, because every all mammalian creatures kind of have that. So why would you? It's not like a technical thing. Why you wouldn't have that? And it's like right between your two eyes, which are like the most important part of a creature. So I've always tried to really be mindful of remembering to do the tear duct. Although I think I'm maybe too mindful, and I kind of get carried away sometimes. So what I try to do now is I try to I have them there, but I just try to make them like kind of like small and kind of pinched and kind of definitely there, but not like kind of not like in a grandstanding kind of way. Oh, thank you, Sean. Yeah, let me see. I think I've got the tear ducts in with this guy. See, they're just with this guy. I've just sort of like suggested it a little bit by kind of like pinching the corners just a little bit, so you don't see like the like the pink kind of membrane so much. But but it's definitely there. Thank you, Sterling and Walter. Thank you, Nick. So, yeah, I one of my issues is like always like before I start something, I keep wondering like why. Okay, trying to decide which thing I want to do. With this guy, I wanted to do like a um, I wanted to do like a exaggerated human character. I didn't want to make a caricature of any kind of real person, but I just wanted to do like a caricature of like a sort of like type. And while referencing things I've seen from actual specific individuals, like for instance the Michael Caine and the Peter Mayhew, and the thing I always get is like, well, it's exaggerated, but it's just a guy. Why am I doing a guy? Shouldn't I be doing a monster? And then I do a monster, and I think, and then I do a monster, and I wonder like, well, this is shouldn't I be doing something more realistic? So I always kind of like, no matter what I do, I always kind of like, full of questions like, well, why am I doing this? But I don't really feel like I know why until like I finally finish it, and if it's good, then I'm like, well, yep, I did it because now I have something done, and I can feel good about it. Jared asks, what's my favorite movie that I've worked on? The movie that I had the most fun working on was Pacific Rim. I had the best time of my life working on that because it was for Guillermo, and Guillermo's like a really a guy who really appreciates artists like us, and I had 5 months working on that project, and I would work like 12-hour, like sometimes 14-hour days, and like I'd work over the weekend. Sometimes I worked both days of the weekend because I was just so into it. And I think I think I did my best work on that project, as far as professionally. Yeah. So Sean says, um, happy mistakes can make it more realistic, and that's absolutely true. Um, because a human face is imperfect. So you know, the more kind of like if you make your mistakes in the right places, you can really kind of like work it into your sculpt and really kind of give some believability to it. But I had a I had a really good time working on Pacific Rim. I got to do 5 really large maquettes of kaijus. John Cibolero says he looks like an old English lord who's witnessed too many wars, and that's totally what I was going for. I was kind of going for like a member of the British Empire, like after the Empire was over. And there's a little bit of a... So Bradford says he painted the CG version of Leatherback. Awesome. Yeah, I thought you guys did a great job on the digital version of that guy. Yeah, as it turns out... Oh, hey, Jamie. I was talking about you earlier. Thanks for watching, man. Like, I can't... I have no idea what time it is in New Zealand. So, let's see. What else can I do here? So I think he'll be mostly bald. I might give him some hair. But I got to pay attention to kind of like all these forms in the skull. So I think what I want to do is kind of like have those have these two kind of like ropey attachments here that kind of, have them be pronounced. Anderson Lewis says, Dave Meng, how to incorporate the Asian commitment discipline? I don't know, because I'm like super lazy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm super lazy. I procrastinate all the time, and somehow I get stuff done. So I guess it's just because I really like doing this stuff. Not sure I understand the question. So I'm just kind of like trying to get those trapezius muscle attachments in there. Oh, thank you so much, Sean. Oh yeah, yep, yep. Using hot clay to kind of fill in the overly sculpted grooves is a really good way to soften them. I think it's important to kind of like overdo your character a little bit and then take it back to make it more realistic, because I think if you try to sneak up on it, that's maybe not going to be as effective. I think I'm naturally sort of like an over sculptor. Oh, hey Miles, thanks for watching. Anderson asks, do you sculpt on software or just traditional? I have done a little bit of ZBrush experimentation, and it's not completely terrible what I did, but I frankly I haven't touched it in like 5 years. I should have, because I have a lot more work right now, but I don't know. I guess I kind of just like doing things by hand. So let me just see the. Kurt says he is like a cool cartoon character that you know is talking because his mustache bounces. Yep, totally. He's totally like this sort of like one of those characters in one of those Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons. Yeah, I think at the beginning of this thing I was thrown off because I forgot that I for some reason I have this bug on my computer where I can't read comments on I can read comments on posts, but for some reason like my the post that had my video going on it, I just the comments weren't showing up, so that freaked me out and kind of threw me off. So Janelle asks, at what point in your life did you start feeling like sculpting was your thing? I wasn't really, I started out just being interested in making, I wanted to make puppets, because I was a big fan of, like, all the stuff Jim Henson did. And I wanted to make puppets, but then I realized, why am I making puppets? Because I'm not going to, like, perform them. I'm not going to like do a show with them or anything. So I just thought, well, it's enough just to have things that look that like try to make things that look cool. So then from there I just kind of got into sculpting. Oh, Tom Taggart says this guy would also make a cool old punk rocker with a mohawk and piercings. That's funny because at one point I had this idea of sculpting old goths, like I thought, because you know. I think now you are beginning to see actual old people who are goth, but like 20 some years ago when I was thinking about doing this, I thought it would be a funny idea to do these two old, like an old couple who have like, I don't know, eyeliner and all kinds of goth stuff, but they're old and they're wrinkly. So let me try to do something different with the camera here, just so it's not totally monotonous. Okay. So I think it's probably time that I put the clay back in the hot box and soften it up again. If there's bringing on the sinew. If for those of you guys who were here earlier, if there's any of those other sculpts you would like another look at or ask questions about, go ahead. Please feel free to do that. So it's actually to sculpt it once the clay cools down, like a big tool like this is pretty. Oh, Walter Evans says I'd like to see them. Okay, so maybe if some of you weren't here earlier, I can bring a few back onto the on camera. Walter, I don't know if you saw this guy earlier. This is a piece of Wrath from the Seven Deadly Sins. Excuse me, let me just blow my nose here. And so here's another one from earlier. It's a bust of a satyr. Thanks, guys. Yeah, like I'd love to do something like this in silicone and punch hair into it. It's something I would really like to try because like I love Tom's stuff, and you know it's I would just like to try to do something like that myself. Thanks, Walter. Thanks, John. Thanks, Tom. Ben Schlegel says, it actually would be really interesting to see this guy you're working on as a large puppet, kind of something like for Jim Henson's The Storyteller. Oh, yeah, definitely. I would love to do, like, you know, like a spitting image type kind of puppet. That would be a lot of fun to do. But for practical purposes, I'm just going to do like a stationary a stationary figure. And Janelle says acrylic eyes. Well, acrylic or glass or whatever I can get, as long as they look good. I don't care what they're made out of. I mean, I'd like to learn how to make them myself, but something tells me I'm not gonna like master that anytime soon. So I'm just gonna get some ones I can purchase for now. So I'll just bring something onto camera, which I haven't shown you guys yet. So this is like a bull centaur that I'm working on. It's hard to see. Yes, I am a Dürer fan, John. You must be referring to the etching I have in the background there, which I forgot to mention. I'll do that shortly. So the hands, the arms, and head are cast in translucent resin, so it's not really easy to see it right now. The final one will be opaque resin, but I just used translucent because that's what that's what I had at the time. But this is what I mean. Like I will mold and cast parts I cut off first, and fit them back onto the rest of the sculpture, which is still in clay, just to make sure that the fit is good. And Kurt says that dude has my forearms. So what this guy's going to be doing is he's going to be kind of like leaning up against the pitchfork or something like that. So, yeah, it's, let me see. I wonder if this will make it better or worse. Oh, worse. Okay. And he's got horns. Let me, okay, so there's, it's kind of like this. So, maybe you can get a close-up of the fur that I'm doing. And, he doesn't have them now, but he will have a huge... Later on, when I'm finished with him, he will have a huge set of, like, bull testicles. Okay. So, let me see if there's... Oh, here was the original head. Here's the original head, which survived the molding fairly decently. And what's happening is now that I'm detailing the fur on the body, I'm doing a much better job on the body than I did on the head. So I'm going to go back and detail this stuff better, and then fit that onto the body when that's cast in resin, and get a better, product out of it. Get a better finished product out of it. And let's see, is there anything else I have here today? No, I can't think of it. Yeah, well, I think that's what I've got for now. So I've got 3 of the 7 deadly sins, kind of 2 more or less done. One kind of, I just need to finish patching it and then paint it. And then I've got 4 more to do after that. So it'll be years and years before I have that series finished. Oh, sorry. So I'm planning to just kind of like work on the forms of this face for a couple, like maybe a week before I start doing kind of like more kind of fine detailing. I just want everything to be as good as it can be. Use Magic Sculpt. So Kurt asks, do I use solvent at the end? Yes, I plan to do so. I just recently watched a video of Steve Wang doing a demo, which I thought was really inspiring, and I kind of want to try that mixture of naphtha and alcohol. Because in the past I just used alcohol on Monster Clay, and I think that doesn't work as well as some other solvents. So Starlene asks, and Enrique says, "Saludos this day, Peru." Hi, Enrique. Yes, it's Cyclops, Kurt. Starlene says, "Do you like water clay, oil-based clays, or polymer clays better?" I think I like oil clay, but I also like polymer clay because it's it just has properties that don't have are just really kind of like conducive to doing organic textures with. And I kind of like that about Monster Clay too, because it's kind of it's slightly elastic, and you know it's very smooth to work with. I apologize if I've missed some people's comments. It's sometimes the comments go by really fast, and I miss a few, or I'm in the middle of like addressing a previous question, and then I kind of get I don't want to like not finish answering that, so so I apologize if I've missed anyone. Oh, John brought up something that I meant to mention earlier. I've got this etching of Durer's Night, Death, and the Devil on my desk here, and it's a fantastic image. It's like a knight on horseback, and he's got death on one side, and he's got this this horrible creature, which is the devil. And if you look at the kind of thanks. I'll see you later, John. Thanks for watching. Kurt, yes, I for the armature, it's just a piece of pipe that's screwed into this wooden base, and I have a loop of armature wire that's just shoved into the pipe, and I used epoxy putty to cement it to the pipe. Jano, I most definitely do not get recognition from a wider audience, but that's okay. So if you look at the kind of forms and detailing on that devil there, that's the kind of stuff I'm kind of interested in doing right now. Just kind of like medieval European kind of stuff is what I'm interested in. But like if you look at, I have another print here. Oh. Well, I've got another print here. This is Matthias Greenwald's The Temptation of St. Anthony. And if you look at the kind of like if you kind of like look at the kind of forms and colors of those devils there, that's kind of the inspiration behind my my Wrath sculpture. Just kind of really kind of saturated yellows and reds. With a very kind of European, Middle Ages kind of feeling. Patrick asks, I absolutely love one of your designs as a lady creature sitting upon the crab. Was there a specific inspiration story behind it? Oh, not really. I just kind of pieced it together from a bunch of other ideas and kind of tried to make something that worked. Yeah. So here's this piece again, and like if you look at it compared to this this Greenwald painting, that's the kind of feeling I've been trying to get with this, and I'd like to mention that for these really fine points, what I did for that is I took some tissue paper and I ran like Elmer's glue through it, and then I like twisted them into like little points, and that's because it would be really hard for me to do that in clay and then mold that. And let's see. I wonder if I have anything else here I can show you guys. So here's an older piece that I did. There's a lot of things I'm not really happy with it, but I think you know, it's more or less not a terrible piece. It's kind of like this frog woman who's sitting on the belly of this kind of like toad guy, and this sort of like lily pad or whatever. The lotus that he's sitting in is kind of like a you know, like from like Asian kind of statues. And she's kind of wearing like a tie hat. Oh, thank you, Bruce. Yeah, I would love to do this guy again, but like to cast this in like a translucent resin, I think it would make it like 100% better if I did that. But this was cast for me at cast and molded at Weta Workshop for me, and it's thanks Brandon, thank you Patrick. It was cast hollow by them, and they made the wooden base for it too. So that was really cool. And he's got these weird kind of like sphincter kind of breast eyes. So it's like I imagine these like kind of like little nipple things would like pull back, and then you'd see like the rest of his eye. And yeah, there's his privates are kind of like that too. Yeah. So okay. I'm not necessarily unhappy with that. I just think that I just think there's certain areas I could have spent more time on. Like I think the lotus base that it's sitting on could have been done better, and the hat, the little tie hat that the girl is wearing could have been done better. You know, probably. I'd like to try to do that in like Magic Sculpt or something, just to see if I could get the detailing better. Mark asks if this will be archived to watch in full later. Yes, it will be. I just hope I remember to hit save when I stop this this recording. Okay. Is there anything you guys would like me to work on this guy for the video? Please let me know. Okay, well, his ears. Okay, yes. How do I approach that? Okay, so Ben wants to see working on the ears, and Bruce is asking about doing hair, which I will address both. If it's okay to kind of go over. See you later, Mark. Thank you for watching. If it's okay to go over the 2-hour mark, I can definitely show the sculpting of the ear and of hair. So the forms of the ear are kind of hard to remember, but once you kind of like get used to them, they're not terribly hard. One time I just sort of like was sitting there trying to draw, Um, I'm sorry, Ethan. I don't remember what gauge that wire is. It's a slightly thicker gauge. It's it's not the thinnest wire, but it's you know it's just strong enough to kind of like be really nice and firm. One time I was trying to draw an ear, and I suddenly, like after drawing many years and sculpting ears, I just suddenly it just fell out of my head. It's just like sometimes when you like type in a pin number at the ATM machine, sometimes sometimes I just forget them. But it's kind of like so you got this like little form here that's called the tragus, I guess, and then it goes around here like this, and then that goes into another fold like this. And then oh, thank you, Jared. Yeah, I think I could definitely go a little longer if people are interested. Good morning, Manos. And then this part here, it usually has like kind of like a notch there, like where it meets the rest of the ear. And then this outer part is like folded nice and crisply. Oh, thank you, Manos. Hi, Christopher. So along the outer edge of the ear, that fold is nice and crisp and very sharply folded. And it's good to remember to get the back of the ear because it's easy to forget that part. Okay, because he's kind of like an old guy, what I'm trying to do is like give him like nice. Oh, thank you, Manos. Hello, Christopher. James Lachlan. Because he's an old guy and I want his earlobes to look nice and fleshy, I'm just sort of gonna carve some. I want it to look like the earlobes are kind of like heavy and kind of like sagging down into his face a little bit. So I'm just gonna add some blobs here to make that. Make that nice and fleshy and saggy. Uh, uh, Everyone, thank you so much again for watching this, for being here and hanging out with me. It really means a lot to me. Everyone's been just so cool tonight, and like kind of like you know, bearing with me through the first part, and now. So yeah, and that's kind of like the basic rough out for an ear. Although for like an old guy, I kind of want the ear to look a little crumpled as well. Can ears be wrinkly? I've definitely seen the lobes kind of get fat and heavy and kind of like wrinkly, kind of like at the base. I think the cartilage part, I've seen that get all like kind of like crumply. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just kind of gonna like sculpt one ear and then try to match the other one. Okay, so Janelle was saying some vascularity. Okay, so maybe some veins on the forehead. So let's see. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna maybe do one along here. I'm gonna kind of like carve a channel in there. Gonna make it nice and kind of like you know, shaky. And then I roll a snake of clay like this, and then I like seat that inside this channel that I made. I used to just like lay the snake of clay right onto the skull, but I actually saw this. I think I saw it as a video on the Shiflett Forum. Somebody doing veins this way, so that's how I do them now. And then I just kind of like blend it in like this. And then I kind of like, if that's a little too harsh, I kind of like knock it down a little bit. It's a wire loop tool. It doesn't have any teeth on it. And I'm going to go back to this tool here, this tool that my friend Jamie taught me how to make. And I'm going to tie this vein in by doing this. So that's kind of how I do a vein, but it would probably look better if I did a few kind of like smaller kind of tributaries. Oh yes, Ben. I'll show you the back of the head. There isn't much on the back of the head yet, but so yeah, that's kind of how I would do a vein, and I can go in and kind of like burnish it with my finger to kind of like have it catch the light a little bit better. Yeah. So before I get to the back of the head, I just want to show. Bruce asked how I do hair. So like this cat figure that or bust that I did showed you guys earlier. This has got a lot of hair work on it, and what I do with hair is I try to. I never just carve lines into the sculpture to make hair. I think of it as 3D form. So I'll just demonstrate. Manos, this is monster clay. Okay, I'm just gonna demonstrate some hair. I'm just gonna like do a patch on this guy just because it's easier to demonstrate on this. So normally I do hair like I do kind of like these oblong kind of like sausages that I just kind of like thumb on to. And I try to be mindful of the direction that it's going in. I try to vary that enough so it looks organic. And after I got a bunch of these, sometimes I go in and add some high points in some areas. So, hi Steve. Thank you for joining me. I take a sharp kind of like loop tool like this, and I kind of like blend it all together, kind of going in the direction that the blobs are in. I try to vary the lines too, so they're not just like a bunch of like lines like this, but I just try to kind of like I try to think of it like I'm drawing hair. And I try to vary the depth of the line like I would if I was drawing. So in certain areas, I kind of want to break things up. I will dig a line deeper. And I can go over that and do more of these kind of like flattened sort of sausages, and after I've got like enough of this kind of stuff done, I then go in with a finer version of the same tool. Same kind of tool, but just smaller and finer. And then I further kind of sculpt in grooves. And when I'm just blowing through this really fast, just so you guys can see, just so I can show you guys. I get this like crinkly plastic wrap. This is like a plastic bag that I got from 7-Eleven. It's like every time I get a donut or something from 7-Eleven, I save the bag and I wash it and I use it for sculpting with. So let's see. A tool like this is really good for what I'm about to do. I go and I like kind of like sculpt the lines of the hair. And some areas I can like kind of press harder and kind of, you know, and that's so that's basically the basic idea. And like I will keep adding to it. if I want a curly hair, you know, I could put like a teardrop shaped sausage and kind of like twist it around like this. Yes, it's the old donut bag trick. And I can, so, you know, now I can kind of like blend this in using this tool. So it's what I try to do is I just try to think of the hair as like a 3D form, just as much as like a feature on the face, like a nose or like a wrinkle. And then like later on I would just go over this again with like the plastic bag and and when I do these lines with this tool, I try to like really kind of like give it like a flow and a direction and like a little bit of drama to it. I mean, this is looking kind of shitty, but you know, I mean, it's like, but that's the basic idea. I'll show you a better example. like the hair on this guy's back was kind of done that way. I just try to really give direction to these like little sausages. Good night, Christopher. Thank you, David. Each of these hairs is like treated like a separate three-dimensional kind of form. And it's basically done just the way I showed it on this guy. And like if something doesn't look good, you can always go back and kind of like work into it. And one thing I've learned with like fur, for instance, is like see, what was I? Oh yeah. So like this kind of like bunched up like scruffy fur on his neck. Like sometimes if you look at like an animal when they kind of like, you know, move around, like where there's like a joint or something, the hair will sort of like get crunched up against itself. It'll get like all bunched up. So what I do with that is I kind of like think of it as like a cracked dry earth, like a riverbed. And I can do just kind of like a grid like this. Like for the scruff of fur on the cat's neck, I kind of like you know, like I'll draw this kind of like grid in, and then I'll go in and I'll use the tool to kind of like work each of these little things so it looks like a tuft of fur that's been like squeezed. So that's like a really that's a really nice way to get certain areas of fur when you're sculpting animals, like on this bull again. Like this fur here, it's kind of like done that way. It's kind of like the fur that kind of gets crushed. Oh, sorry, I did something with my phone there. I was afraid I screwed up. Okay. Yeah. Well. You're welcome, Bruce. I hope that helped. I hope I didn't just like just dither and blither and not make sense. Okay. So someone says, oh, someone was asking me like, do I use solvent or just blend everything with a tool? I try to blend everything as much as I can with my hands and with tools, and also with the stipple sponge. As much as possible before going to solvent. And and let's get back to the back of the head. Okay, so here's got this. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. So I'm just trying to kind of like, I guess, not just have the back of the head be the smooth shape. I want a little bit of boniness in there. So there's that kind of like occipital kind of prominence in the back of the skull. And there's also like these, well, like on a skull, there's like these knobs down here, kind of like by your ears. So try to remember to put them in too. Okay, I'm just going to scrape this hair off because it's kind of confusing me at the moment. Matthew asks, do you prefer naphtha as the subtle last smoothing or some form of alcohol? This is actually one of the... I don't use Monster Clay very often, and I'm told that you should use something other than just pure alcohol to smooth it with. And I've heard that I recently watched a video where like Steve Wang was using like isopropyl alcohol. I think he said like 90% alcohol to 10% terpenoid. So that's what I'm gonna be smoothing this with. I normally use NSP Siobhan, and with that I just use alcohol just by itself. Yes, I've heard Matthew. I've heard that. I've read that isopropyl myrcete works on Monster Clay. For Siobhan, I just use alcohol. Okay. Let me just back up the camera a little bit. Gino asks, could you just heat it to slightly melt the surface and let the clay level itself and smooth up? I definitely, you know, I'm not with Siobhan. I will sometimes use my mini torch to kind of like smooth things out with a flame. I'm not sure about monster clay for that, but that works sometimes with Siobhan to kind of get it smooth. Stacy says, I use alcohol for Siobhan, but it does seem to get brittle if you overdo it. That's true. The more heat and alcohol that you put on like a Siobhan piece, it'll like kind of degrade the surface, and it'll get like kind of like hard and difficult to work with age. But you know, I've had a bunch of sculpts. I've got a bunch of sculpts here that have just been sitting around my desk for like years, and they've all gone hard because, you know, it's just been so long. But I rub a little bit of Vaseline into the surface and then slowly kind of like rejuvenate the outside of the clay, and then I can work with it again. So Manos asks, what's my favorite plastiline? It really just depends on what I'm doing. I mean, most of my things I've been using Siobhan, and I really like that because I'm really used to it. But when I first started using Siobhan, I didn't like it because I thought it was a little sticky. I grew up using Roma plastiline, and when I first started using Siobhan, I couldn't quite deal with it. But then I got used to it, and now I use it for most of my things. But I'm using monster clay tonight because I found that when I heated it up, I can work with it very quickly. It's a very smooth, easy to use clay when it's warm. Okay, so for the back of the head, I'm just trying to get like subtle bony forms in there. And just trying to give the back of the head as much character as the rest of it, so that if I decide to not cover the head with too much hair when I make this a silicone piece, the back of the head will still be interesting to look at. I also try to like remember the kind of angularity of the skull. The skull isn't really all that round. Like if you look at this, it's kind of like squared off at the sides. Okay, I think I'm gonna go back here and kind of like work up these neck muscles a little bit more. Stacy says, it really does take getting used to. My old Shiflett tricks don't always work with monster clay. Yeah, definitely. Each clay has its kind of like own characteristics. Janelle says, I feel like paraffin oil works better than Vaseline oil to soften clay. I've never tried it. I'd be interested to. Matthew says this sculpt might be the child of Bill Nighy and Boris Karloff. Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a little bit of Bill Nighy in there, and maybe a little bit of Vincent Price too with the upper lip. Yeah, the mouth is definitely a little bit Bill Nighy. So I'm gonna do a little bit of work with the mouth here, and when you're doing lips, a really fun thing to do is to kind of like take little flattened blobs of clay and add them in just the right places to kind of like make that lip look like it's, you know, made of meat. Thank you, Cassidy. So here that line was a little too deep, so I'm too harsh, so I'm filling that in with some softer clay. And try to get that a little bit more saggy and fleshy there too. Jeno says he looks like he's smelling a fart. Yeah, he kind of does. Just want this kind of like snooty, uncomfortable, kind of like looking guy. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do right now, just before it gets too far away from me, is I want to just throw in Matthew asks, do you ever use the alcohol torch? I've got totally dependent on it for construction, texturing, and smoothing. I love how it can both melt clay and heat the metal tools. I've never really got the hang of using an alcohol torch. Yeah, I just I'm sure it's fine. I've never really used it. Manos asks, can I find any DVD lessons by you on how to sculpt full body creature maquettes? I did one for the Gnomon school on how to sculpt an orangutan. So if you go to the Gnomon workshop, you can find that. Barry Michael asks, is that Night Death and the Devil in the background? Yes, it is. So I want to just kind of like rough in the mustache a little bit just to make sure it still looks like the maquette. Yep, Stacy, mine is just a little butane torch. See, it's just this. Maybe I'll give him like a little bit of a point to his mustache so he looks more aristocratic. Gnomon Workshop. It's Manos. The Gnomon Workshop. It's spelled Gnomon. Thank you, Rick. I just want to make sure that the face continues to have a lot of character and be a little more exaggerated than anything you would find in real life, because I don't want it to just be I don't want it to be boring. Yeah, I think Jano mentioned that I've forgot to cough this whole time, so I'm glad. I'm glad I can do this now. I was really dreading speaking tonight because yeah, it was getting really bad. Mustache or orc's tusks? I think it's just gonna be a mustache. Let's see. Let me think. Is there anything I can do here that can kind of make make more of a statement? I think maybe what I want to do is kind of like make these cheeks more hollow. So to kind of get the line that I want, I'm going the direction of the form first. And after I kind of like find what I want, I go in and I kind of sculpt across the form so that nothing gets eroded. And maybe it would be better to kind of hollow out the temples a little bit more so he looks more sickly, more gaunt. Genoa asks, am I enjoying sculpting? Yes, I am. Yeah, and Jared, yeah, I think the mustache is helping a lot. Thank you, Manos. So, I want to kind of add a little bit more boniness to his the zygomatic arch here. I want to kind of like emphasize that a little bit more. I want to look really kind of like kind of bony in a Peter Cushing kind of way. Yeah, it's Dolly all of a sudden. Yep, it is. It is. Yeah, Dolly kind of like in his older age had definitely kind of like a very long, saggy face, which is kind of what this guy has. So yeah, it's totally looking like Dolly. So without the mustache, it's like Michael Caine, and with the mustache, it's like Dolly. Chano says, I find the process of sculpting itself more satisfying than finishing anything. Yeah, definitely. Sculpting is a lot of fun. It is also like, after a while, it does become kind of tedious, and I do kind of like to just, like that gluttony piece I showed earlier, it's kind of close to the point where I can start painting it, and it's a really satisfying feeling when something's like nearly done, because you know, there's something I've made. And there's something I've made, and my time on Earth wasn't completely meaningless. Tom says he'd make an awesome butler. Yes. It's kind of like a character from like the game Clue or something. Yep, so the kind of exaggeration I'm kind of going for is the kind of exaggeration you see in like an design for an animated movie. But ultimately what I want to do is kind of like make it realistic, like realistically textured, and have hair and you know, glass eyes or whatever. And I think it's going to be a fun thing to try to do. Okay, and so he's kind of like, with this sculpt, I've kind of got like a puckered kind of chin, and I want to try to get that feeling in here. And he's got the kind of like pads around the on the sides of the mouth. Because the chin's kind of going up, these pads are getting squished, and so I want that feeling in there. And I want kind of like those those dimples you get when you compress your when your chin is kind of like compressed. And again, I want to kind of like go in and make these look really saggy. And I haven't. Jared says life-size stuff scares the shit out of me. I've been doing little things for a long time now, and I really want. I used to do like kind of like bigger stuff because I wanted to make puppets and stuff, and but I'm finding it's like a lot of fun to get back to trying to make bigger stuff, because it's like I can get so much more detail and spend so much more time. Like his one nose is like the size of like a bust that I would normally do. So so it's a lot of fun. It's just like there's so much more to kind of play with. I think one of my problems is that like I tried to sculpt a whole, but like a couple of years ago when my son was born, my wife was working, so I ended up staying home to watch him for a couple of months, and I didn't get any work done during the day. So between the hours of 10 at night to 4 in the morning was the time I could sculpt. And I was just ironically I got more done in that time than I normally did when I had all the time in the world. And I started like 12 things at once. Some of which are like things I showed you tonight. And and ever since then I've been trying to finish those 12 things. And I think it's better if I just do kind of like one big thing and try to finish that to the best of my abilities. I think maybe one big thing and then like a smaller figure, just so I can kind of get the best of both worlds. Yes, late night is great sculpting time. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So, let's see. Simonos asks, do you prefer to make humans and animals or creatures from your imagination? Yeah, that's an interesting question that creatures can display like your ability to imagine, but humans and animals display like how skillful you are. But I sometimes feel that like if I only sculpted realistic stuff, I would never be able to show that I could kind of use my imagination. But if I only did imaginative stuff, I might not be able to show that I have the skill to do realistic things. So I try to do both. Yes, Crystalline says, do you usually go into a sculpt with an idea already in mind or figure it out as you go? I usually go into it with an idea in mind. I very rarely just jump in completely cold. Usually it's just like a really shitty little sketch. Maybe I can find something in my sketchbook to show you just how shitty these drawings are. Okay, these shitty sketches are how my ideas start, because I don't have time. Like I don't want to wait around to try to like do a nice drawing, so I just do these crappy little sketches. See, here's like a guy. He's got a banjo for a head. You know, that's an idea. There's a chameleon wearing a powdered wig. Ridiculous, stupid, crappy drawings. But they're, you know, I'm the only one who normally looks at them, so I don't have to really try to do a good job. As long as I know what my... It's almost like a shorthand, like, note. Let me see. Let me see if I can find any more of these crappy things to show you. Okay, so again, crappy, terrible drawings, but this is like a, you know, this was going to be like a ideas for like a manticore I wanted to do. Manticore is a creature from mythology. It's got a lion's body, man's head, 3 rows of teeth, and a scorpion tail. I was thinking maybe it'd be interesting to kind of incorporate more of the scorpion texture into all the rest of the body. And see, these are not good drawings, and the face isn't that cool, but like when I sculpt, I can figure it out. With both my hands working, I can kind of like work it out in 3D better. Ben asks, is there a concept sketch for the Monkey King piece? Let me see. There is just Tom says my sketches are just like that, but I guarantee mine are shittier yet. they're really fun, you know, because it's like here's a page of like monster fishes that I did. It's like I don't want to. My mind's working at a certain speed that my drawing ability isn't fast enough to keep up with. So I'm just trying to just throw ideas out there, and I'm the only one who ever has to see them, so I'm showing them to you guys now, but, you know, oh, actually, if you guys remember this guy, this was the, this here was the full body figure for that. And here was the original sketch for that. See how terrible that is? But you can kind of see like the basic kind of like lines that I wanted to get into it. Like I wanted to really swell up towards the jaw like that. I wanted these twisty horns. And originally he's going to have like teeth sticking out of his upper jaw like a boar. It's kind of like an idea that kind of popped up in my head as I was like drifting off to sleep one day, and I just scribbled it out as fast as I could so I wouldn't forget it. If you guys remember this guy here, which I did a much nicer pencil sketch of. This was the original sketch that I did. And so, you know, it's just like a quick thing that it's really sloppy, but it just gets the idea across. Okay, so I forgot who asked about the Monkey King, but this is the original concept sketch for it. You know, I wanted it to have kind of like a Bruce Lee like physique, because I think of the Monkey King as kind of like a Bruce Lee kind of character, like a little guy who can really like you know, let loose and like kick bigger guys' asses, and you know, that's kind of the idea. And yeah, so I hope that my wife says she actually likes those like crappy sketches I do better than my finished drawings, because I think she just thinks they're funnier. So yeah, like crappy drawings, but that's what I use as the basis for like that's all I need to kind of like do a start a sculpt with. Okay, so I think we're coming up close to 3 hours, and I suppose I should probably start wrapping up maybe in the next couple of minutes. But unless you guys want to see a little more, if you want to let me know what I can show you, otherwise I might just work for like maybe another 10 minutes or so, and but please let me know. It's actually kind of interesting, like I'm looking at the camera, the phone, filming this, and it's like working into a mirror. Samana says, "Keep going, please." Okay. I'm seeing it smaller on the screen and also in reverse from how I'm seeing it in real life. So that's actually like a really great way to sculpt, because I can kind of like, if your thing holds up in miniature and in reverse, then it's probably holding up in real life. I have this little mirror that I use to Annie McCauley says, "Is it Jafar from Aladdin?" Well, I guess it's kind of like a similar, it's that sort of character, I guess. Although mine isn't, this guy isn't, so he's a little more hapless. He's a little more a victim of circumstance. Oh, thank you, Ben. Okay, thank you, Jared. Okay, well, if you guys are still watching, I could go for a while longer. I'm starting to really get comfortable and enjoy this. So yeah, I was really nervous at first because it's like the comments weren't working on the. I had Facebook queued up on my laptop, and the comments weren't working there. I was starting to like really kind of sweat bullets. Because all the days leading up to this, I was trying to think, oh, I really got to prepare for this. But, you know, it's hard to kind of think of everything you're going to say. Hey, John. Nice to see you here. Yeah, thank you everyone for being so supportive of me doing this. I really appreciate it. Okay, so I want to start adding some real kind of like interest to this side of the face here. And I was thinking maybe what I could do is kind of like putting these character lines here. I want this like really wrinkly skin. And so then I'm gonna So I'm going to take this tool here and kind of like soften those lines I just carved in. Reading the comments here. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate what you guys are saying. So now I'm gonna like roll these like worms and kind of like build up some 3D form over the wrinkles I just carved in. Oh. And what you can do is kind of like layer these flattened worms over each other and kind of crisscross them. I just wanted to look like a really old, decrepit old guy. Maybe it'd be kind of nice to have like the skin be kind of like tinted towards the ear here. So and with this tool again, I'm gonna go in and kind of tie those forms together. It also kind of works well to kind of like, you know, go in the direction of how the skin is kind of like being stretched, or the direction that's sagging, or whatever you're trying to do. Normally I have like a little handheld mirror like this that I use to kind of like look at my sculpture in reverse with. And people always give me shit for like, oh, why are you looking at yourself? Why are you checking yourself out? So, you know, but you know, it's useful. Jesse Rubin asks, do you ever have any trouble losing your inspiration? Yeah, all the time. It's getting less though. I never thought this was possible, but I think you actually can train your imagination like a muscle. I always thought that was something you're either born with or you're not, and probably some people are born with more or less, but whatever amount you have, you can definitely kind of like build it up, I think. Because if I look at a list of things I wanted to sculpt from back when I was in my 20s, hi Jordan, those lists were like, the further back in time you go, the more asinine those lists seem to me now. So okay, I want to kind of make these temples look a little more hollow, so instead of digging in, I'm gonna add a little bit more boniness to this ridge here. Doug says, saying, I gotta sign off. Thanks so much for the. Oh, thank you very much, Doug. Thank you for joining me. Okay. And let's give him a. Thanks, Doug. Let's give this old Englishman like a nice sagittal ridge. see. Sorry, my face keeps kind of like half popping up. I don't really mean to do that. Okay, let's see. What do I want to do here? Starting to worry it's looking a little too square. Maybe if I put a little bit more weight on the jowls, it'll kind of help the saggy effect I'm trying to do. I think the biggest enemy when whether you're designing characters or creatures or drawing or sculpting them or whatever, the biggest enemy is for things to be boring. And anytime things are too parallel, like lines or the sides of the face are too parallel, that's always like a sign that things are getting boring. So, so I want things kind of like going at angles to each other. I want this to be like this, and then like this, and then swooping in, and then like squishing down towards the bottom of the jaw. Let's give him some rolls of flesh kind of underneath his neck, or underneath his jaw. Matthew asks, "Do I have a Twitch stream?" Oh no, I don't. I don't even. I'm not really familiar with what Twitch is. I'm really behind on the times. Need more sculptors there. Okay, well, we'll definitely. I'll check it out. Twitch. Nick DeSantis, I'm wanting to see a bit of a cleft in his chin too. Okay. Well, let's see what that would look like. I'm kind of thinking a cleft chin is kind of like a heroic thing, and I kind of want him to look like, sort of like, an old feeble guy. But let's see what that looks like. Thank you, Jorg. Okay, thanks, Matthew. I'll definitely check Twitch out. Made for gamers who stream live. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's cool about Twitch. Okay, what more can I do here? Okay, this top of the head's looking a bit sloppy, so maybe I should kind of rake that. So I'm moving in kind of like these half moon shapes, which is kind of like how I learned to sculpt. Is to my sculpting professor in college said always sculpt in across the form. By which he meant like if you're kind of like your form's longer this way, it's better to kind of model your forms kind of like in the opposite way, opposite direction. Okay. I'm finding that there's like all these kind of like hollow areas on the head, so I'm gonna go and oh, geez. What's this? Actually, let me there. Dario asks, it's Monster Clay, Dario. Which is an oil-based clay. Oh, thank you, Giovanni. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a good night. So over here, I think what could be helpful is if I give like a little ridge next to this iPad, this eye bag, and kind of do that. Oh, okay. Well, good night. Good night, Bruce. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night. Yeah, my cold is really not so bad. It's just when you have to talk, it's kind of really dreadful. Okay, so yeah, this thing's kind of coming along, I guess, and at some point I'll just continue working on this guy, and later on I'll get to detailing him, and I'll be posting it up on the Shiflett Brothers Forum, and hopefully keep you guys kind of like keep you guys posted on the progress of it, and I'll be working more on the neck, kind of getting that to Facebook needs the multiple. I'll be doing more work on the neck and stuff, and kind of probably adding more to the shoulders, and Yeah, but I think for tonight, that's hopefully that's gonna be good. Um, yeah. Well, I want to say thank you again to Brandon and Brandon and Jared for letting me uh, for inviting me to do this. I've really had a great time with you guys, and thank you so much for being patient through the first hour and a half of this. Where thank you, Brandon. Um, okay, Mana says, "Can you show us creatures, please?" Okay, maybe I'll just show a couple more creatures before I go. For those of you who missed the first part, uh, here's a turtle guy again. Okay, and okay. Well, I think I think I should probably get going. And thank you guys so much for sticking through with me tonight. And yep, I hope to continue talking to you guys and hearing from you on the Shiflett Brothers Forum. And my let me just give you my website address. It's David Meng Artworks at oh god damn it David Meng Artworks, davidmengartworks.com. I have such a cold I can't remember my own website. Well, you'll probably find if you just type in David Meng Artwork or David Meng Art, you'll find both my blog and my website. Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Shiflett Brothers, for having me on to do this. I really had a great time. And good night to you all. Thank you very much.